She finished her Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English in St. Joseph College, Maasin City last March 1995. Then she had graduated her Master of Arts in Teaching major in English at Southern Lady State University, Sugod Main Campus last October 2013. Then she had taken her Doctor of Education major in Educational Management in Southern Lady State University, Tomas Opus Campus. In addition and to that, she started teaching at Hitudpan National High School in Batu National High School as substitute teacher from 1996 to January 1997. From August 5, 1998 to the present, she is working in Anhawan National High School as Teacher 1 at the start. And as of now, she is already Master Teacher 2 in the said learning institution. Then, at the same time, she is the English Department Head, Lead Teacher, and SBM Coordinator in the said school. Today, I am with a woman who has been part of my former alma mater success and who is raising multiple achievers for more than 23 years, the one and only Dr. Mary Flor J. Misa. How are you today, ma'am?
Not feeling well. I'm quite tired since we have lots of things to be done during this time of pandemic.
I'm sorry to hear that, ma'am. Alright, I'm going to proceed directly to the questions that are being prepared for this interview. First question is, how do you gather information about students in terms of their knowledge, skills, and values? Then, what assessments tool do you use?
Before I'm going to start my class, before the pandemic and during this time of the pandemic, I usually give a diagnostic test. My students in every subject that I'm handling that covers the questions that tackles all the competencies that are supposedly to be discussed for the whole school year. And then it includes also some questions that may determine the different skills as an individual. With that, I would be able to know the respective knowledge, skills, and values. So I would be able to know also on what are the strengths and what are their weaknesses as a learner. And with that, I would be able to know on how I'm going to plan the learning activity sheets that I'm going to give unto them as a teacher, for them to have a better understanding of the lesson that I would give unto them. And with that diagnostic test that I've got to give, I also include in there an easy type question in which I've got to use a rubric depends on the questions that I'm going to include in there.
Is it necessary to use rubrics?
Yes, because in the rubrics, the learners will be able to learn on what are the necessary points that they need to emphasize with the equivalent points that the teacher would try to give. And with that, they would be able to learn to give more emphasis on some points that are required for them to answer well.
Okay, ma'am. So my next question is, when do you conduct assessments?
I usually conduct assessment every after a discussion of a certain lesson. That was, I usually do that before the pandemic, but this time, since we are using modular print, still I'm doing that. I included that in my learning activity sheets. In the division related, the parts of the learning activity sheets that are being given unto us is that the first one is explore. So in that particular part, the teacher would try to give an exploratory activity that will introduce the topic. The second one is the learn. In the learn part, we the teachers would usually discuss every important detail regarding the topic in the simplest way so that the learner would be able to understand on what really the topic is being given. Then after that, I usually give a practice activity with an answer so that in the mind of the students, they would be able to think on what could be the probable questions that could be given and how they would answer all those. Okay. And then, third stage, that is what we call as engage. The stage wherein series of activities are going to be given. I usually give only 2 sets of activities so that it would not be too long for the students to answer and to read. Okay, all these activities are geared to carry out the given objective, but in a different way, to give varied activities. And in the last stage, we have the apply. Okay, this is what we call as the last activity that we are going to give the learner an activity just like evaluation. Okay, just like during the before the pandemic, every after a discussion of a lesson, we the teachers would try to give evaluation. Okay, so we're going to do that so that we would be able to know if the learner really gets what we've got to discuss and to them. If there is really learning that happens. I usually make sure that it could not be searched from the internet because some of the students usually search the answers from the internet. So I usually, make my own questions or I may get from our regional test item bank so that the students would not be able to search it from anywhere.
Indeed.
Sure learning on the part of the learners.
So my next question, ma'am, is it possible for assessments to fail? And if so, how do you deal with it as a teacher?
Yes. So, if it happens, I usually teach my lesson.
So how do you reteach, ma'am?
I make a new lesson plan in which I'm going to discuss the lesson in a simpler way and then provide another activities that are simpler than before, but still it would try to carry out the objective to make sure that my learners would be able to pass for the second time around.
So my next question, how do you utilize the information you obtain from the assessments you are using in your profession?
I use the information that I gather from the assessments that I've got to make as the basis of the things that I must do as a teacher. So, because we usually make what we call as item analysis, and with that one, we would be able to know on what items in which the students are not doing well. So with that one, we would be able to know the respective weaknesses. And with that, we would be able to create questions in which it would be simpler for the students to answer. And for the next time around, that particular result would not be repeated.
My next question, how does assessment help you become more effective and efficient teacher?
It helps me to become an effective and efficient teacher because it suggests to me on what are the things that I need to do for my learners to learn more from me. Because when I gonna do, as I said, when I gonna do the item analysis, there are suggestions that are going to be given in there. If that question needs to be revised, if you are going to make reteach, or if you do not need to make a reteach, at least you know that this kind of questions may make a problem unto your learners, and so me as a teacher will not do it again.
So my last question, ma'am, is what has been your teaching philosophy throughout the decades?
I just simply think to do the best that I can in everything that I do as a public servant, because my students or the learners whom I have are, the hope and the future leaders of tomorrow. So I need them to learn the best from me for them to become the best also when their time comes.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that you permit me to conduct this interview with you, and I value it so much.
You're very much welcome.